Hello, everyone. Thank you for all of the love in the chat. Say hello, and I will say hello back. My name is Emanuela, and I am a staff member at CodePath. And we are so excited to welcome you to our next breakout session. Before I introduce the session, I have a few reminders for you. Please make sure that you utilize the chat. Like I said, show some love in there. Be sure to share some key insights that you're getting, encourage others, and just share all the gems that you're hearing so that you can help others. Make sure that you keep the comments relevant to the session. Please also take a minute to take the survey that we have at the end of the session. You will be prompted in this session, so be sure to fill that out because your feedback will help us to improve future sessions and future EES that we have in the future. With those reminders out of the way, I am very excited to introduce this session, which is called Intern to Full-Time Engineer, My Career Path at Snowflake, with two individuals from Snowflake. I will go ahead and read their bios now, just so you can get a little sense of who they are. First, we have Michelle, who serves as the Senior Manager of Global University Programs at Snowflake, where she oversees the intern program and works to drive impactful experiences for students and educational partners. A multilingual leader in talent development, she has successfully scaled multiple international programs throughout her career, building bridges across diverse global markets and educational institutions. And then we have Sarah, who is a senior engineer at Snowflake and helped to build Snow Park Python features. She received her bachelor's degree in science in computer science with a minor in statistics from the University of Waterloo in 2022. She has 2 years of her professional experience and a deep enthusiasm for C++, which is amazing. And so please help me in welcoming both Michelle and Sarah to the stage. All right,
Thank you,
show some
Manuela.
emojis. Of course, Michelle. And I will go ahead and hand it over to the both of you to take on this session.
All right,
Thank you,
wonderful.
Manuela.
Thank you, Manuela. And you can hear us all okay. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to be here. And as Emanuela shared, my name is Michelle, and I'm so excited to talk with you today about how Snowflake is investing in the next generation of our leaders. It's a huge focus for us, and a very big part of that is creating pathways for our early career talent. And to help us dive into that experience and what it's really like, I'm joined by Sarah Abdelrahman. And Sarah started as an intern with us and is now a full-time engineer. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Sarah, it's a pleasure to have you, as I shared. And our goal with the intern program is to turn an internship into an unforgettable experience. So we provide meaningful work, no busy work here, and we believe in setting up our early and career talent just to have success for everyone from day one. And Sarah, you've been on the Snowpark team for almost 3 years now, as you joined as an intern. Can you tell us about your role and what is Snowpark?
Yeah, for sure. So I work on the server side or the backend side of Snowpark. Snowflake was originally built with a primarily SQL interface. So when users have data on Snowflake and they want to query it, it was primarily only SQL supported. But what Snowpark did was extend that support for other languages as well, like Python, Java, and Scala. So now when the users want to interact with the data in Snowflake, they can run arbitrary code in those languages without having to extract that data from the secure Snowflake environment. So it's all within Snowflake. Personally, when I was an intern, I worked on two projects because I was lucky enough to do back-to-back internships. My first internship was on Java UDFs and improving observability and the debuggability experience for users. My second internship was building Python table functions. So you request data, you run a function, and the result that you have is multi-column and multi-row.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing and just thinking through about doing 2 back-to-back internships. It's incredible to hear about the distinction between the 2 projects as well, and making it into production, just knowing that what you produced was, foundational. So thank you for sharing what Snowpark is, and just going into your projects and, how it can be productionized and released to our customers. They can definitely have global impact, so thinking through what our internship experience is like. So every intern is given, that meaty project. How did that experience prepare you for the path that you're on now?
I was very exposed to the day to day of my coworkers as well, who are working full time. I got to see what their day to day looked like, so it helped me set up to know what my day would look like as an individual contributor. As I
Love that.
said, because of that back to back internship, I was exposed to different projects. It's still within Snowpark, but it gave me an idea of like what do I want to work on as full time. So that flexibility was also pretty nice. And working closely with the more senior engineers as well exposed me to what a senior role would look like and helped me look at what the future might look like as an engineer as well, not just when I first joined as a new grad, but what my career down the line would look like.
Thank you for sharing and just thinking through what a senior engineer would look like and the skill sets there. And again, about your back to back internships. I think it really speaks to like our team's collaboration and how we work with other departments and like how we ensure our interns, get to be placed, to map to those projects. What are some of the differences and developments you've seen in yourself since graduating from an intern into a full time employee?
The main thing I would say is, like, things are not taking as much time as they used to. As I got familiar with the code base, our code base at Snowflake, especially Snowpark, is very unique. There's a lot of best practices and a lot of decisions that we follow. So now that I'm familiar with the code base as an intern, I was able to hit the ground running as an IC when I first joined. The other thing is written communication and documentation. That's not
Mhm.
something a lot of students think of when you're still an undergrad and an intern, but you get to write a lot as an engineer, and especially when you're trying to share your ideas like in a design doc. You don't think about how much context you need to give the reader. You have to assume that the reader is not only an engineer who's not familiar with your project, they're just an engineer in the company, but you have to provide all the context about what your team even does so that you're able to communicate what your project is and what your ideas are. So I've definitely seen a lot of growth in terms of things are not taking as much time as they used to, and as well as writing designs and written documentation and communication.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I mean, I think written communication is key, and I think it's sometimes underestimated about the quality and the connection and the connective tissue that produces. And as you mentioned, the design doc. You also mentioned, context. So having that context is key. That level to detail, what that looks like in there, and I think that's something that really speaks, to our intern program overall, is like how we're committed to help folks grow, even from all the life cycle of communication. And so laying those foundations for one's career, and having access to that and having that feedback too. Another piece, just thinking about our program and how we focus on 3 key pillars. We have 3 pillars at Snowflake, and that's building connections, professional development, and Snowflake for good. We want all interns to feel very connected and engaged to one another, for their path for their career. Were you you were recently promoted from an IC1 to an IC2, which is
Correct.
fantastic. Congrats.
Thank
What
you.
Yeah, no, huge congrats. It's a big milestone. And what responsibilities helped like propel you towards that next stage in your career?
I was given the chance to really own a project and a feature from end to end. When I was an intern or when I was working as an IC1, the projects that I was working on were someone else's ideas and someone else's design. So I got just to work on the implementation. But my manager gave me the chance to start from the design, implementation, timeline progress, production rollout, and all the way to support and customer communication. So giving that chance to really take ownership and take something all the way to production was a way for me to show that I am ready for that next level. I am ready to be an IC2. Additionally, I was pushed to review a lot more code. So I was nominated as a C++ best practices reviewer across our entire code base, not just Snowpark. That gave me a lot of visibility on what other projects and what other teams are working on. And when I think of an engineer growing, I think of when you start as an intern IC, you're so focused on your own project. But as you grow as an engineer, having that visibility of and broader understanding of what goes on around you is for sure a sign that you are progressing towards your progressing career towards it's the right trajectory.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, just as you shared, being able to like push that to code review, and having a lot of visibility. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility and also just amazing to have that touch point across all. So you're not just focused on your own thing, but you're also looking, broadly at everything else. And so love hearing about the ownership of the C++ and just, being a reviewer overall. And that really shows like acting like an owner, and that's a great way to put it. I think it really highlights, also when we're looking at our internship, and our pathways to full time, and then stepping into that, we have our employees and what our culture looks like. And so, with the help of managers and mentors, as you've been sharing, what role did your team specifically play in like helping, get you to that next level?
Well, my manager for sure played such a huge role, like starting off by just giving me the chance to own this project, but also when he first like joined and came in, he told me, "I want you to get to that next level within the next 3 quarters. Let's work on a plan. This is what you need to do. If you're able to achieve this, then we are able to get you that promotion." So I really appreciated that clear communication and transparency. It gave me milestones to work towards, and I knew what I needed to do to get to the next level. And I really appreciated that. Another confidence booster for me was from my team lead and mentor at the time. It was an offhanded comment from her where she said, like, "I already treat you as an IC2." But I'm sure for her, it might have just been just a comment, a throwaway comment. But for me, it helped me fight that imposter syndrome. And it was such a huge confidence boost.
That's amazing. And just also, knowing that, she's your, advocate or, what that looks like as well. I think, continuously that feedback, those milestones, and confidence is key when you feel like you have an advocate behind you,
For
and seeing
sure.
around corners. I mean, you're able to, have that together. Yeah, so now let's talk about like life after promotion. Like you said, like the freedom to explore rather just being, kind of given that clear benefit. So what's changed for you now, and what are you most looking forward to in, your new role as you look ahead?
What changed for me is I'm given a lot more responsibility. I'm that again, that ownership aspect, like I now own an area instead of owning just a project. And when you own the area, you don't necessarily only work on like one feature for the entire quarter. Yes, you have some OKRs that you're committed to delivering, but also as you're working during the quarter, if you stumble upon something that you think, hey, I could fix this and it will give the customer a better experience, or maybe this will help our internal debuggability, I am able to just work on it, communicate with my manager, obviously, but there's less like friction when it comes to, can I work on this? It's a lot more flexibility because there's the team trusts me and knows that that's not going to come in the way of me delivering my OKRs for the quarter. What I am most excited about is mentoring. Like I said, my mentors have had such a huge role in helping me grow my career, and I just would love to be that person from someone else and kind of give back, helping out interns or other juniors start out their career, because I know how scary it was for me, and having that support was really a game changer.
That's amazing. I love hearing that value, and I think that speaks to our internship pillar around Snowflake for Good and giving back to the community, giving back to someone else, as you shared. It's fundamental. It's like the circle of how we all support one another, and trust too is consistency over time, and that's amazing to see that development between you and your manager, and just also your greater team as well. And so, speaking of mentorship, as I mentioned, it's a core component of our intern program. Our goal is to collaborate, with mentors and create that like structured and meaningful experience. With your passion for mentorship now, what's your advice for anyone looking to like follow in your footsteps or looking, kind of in a similar pathway?
My biggest advice is to always try to be proactive. So if you're working on something in your blog, don't wait until someone asks how it's going. You take the initiative to ask questions. Show that you've tried, you've researched, but you are stuck and you need help. And also give feedback. Like if you stumble upon someone else's design, even if they're a senior engineer, and you have a piece of advice that is valid criticism or a good idea, it's okay to give feedback, even if there's even if they're a senior and you're still an intern, because a good idea is a good idea no matter where it came from. So
Yeah.
be proactive, take that first step. Be involved is what I would summarize it as.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Being involved and the proactivity, that's fantastic advice. And I think, being the person to ask questions, because it can be very, intimidating to ask those questions. But once you do, I mean, it creates that whole safe space. And safe space is so key to know that like we're learning and growing together and we're sharing that same objective of, how do we get to that next step? And our talent out there, competition is fierce, and so how we stand out and how we work through that together, I think is so key. And so just kind of moving us along, wanting to think about at Snowflake we really want to develop into that community. In your opinion, what is the best part of like why Snowflake? If someone is looking in to start their career, what is it about Snowflake that made it unique and made you want to come here?
Honestly, I always go back to the people and the culture. Even as an intern, I would have principal engineers spending their time helping me out with a problem that I've had. They were so generous with their time and their knowledge. There is a big emphasis on knowledge sharing. And that's such a unique position to be in as an intern or a new grad, and just absorbing all of that knowledge from the people around you. That would be my main thing. And then the second thing is I also like to be challenged. I think it is easy to find a company where like the work itself is not as exciting, but your day to day is just you're getting by. But for me, like I like that every day I come to Snowflake, I work on an interesting problem, something that challenges me and makes me work like my problem solving skills and like try to figure out, wait, how am I going to solve this problem? So like the two aspects of I like to work on something challenging, but I also know that it is challenging, and if I need help, someone will be there to help me. Was the main reason I came back to Snowflake.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that speaks to the community and just knowing that you're not alone in the journey. And then with that, like you said, you got to solve so many meaty problems and challenges and explore new ones that that maybe
For sure.
weren't on your bucket list or your list to dos. So, but with that, I know that we're closing up soon on our time here, but we do want to open up for questions. So I just want to take a moment and thank you, Sarah, for all of your advice and guidance and also sharing your story, because it is so inspirational to hear just how went about putting that productivity, putting your design and taking things to production, and also just not being afraid to take that step and share and speak what your needs were and what you were looking for, and then also having, as you share, the advocate. I know it's a two-way street, but you really demonstrated that. So
Thank you for
um
having me. It was a pleasure.
yeah, yeah, of course. And with that, I do want to call out, we have a lot of resources. So we have our booth that, we will be having today and for the next 3 days. So please connect with us on LinkedIn, which is, really a great place to stay connected. And also, we did really want to leave, being that this is time is for all of you, we wanted to carve out more time for questions. And so that was, an intentional piece here. So with that, I know Emanuela might come back to the stage to help us facilitate the questions here.
Awesome. Thank you all so much, you, Michelle and Sarah, for just having this great conversation. I saw the chat; folks were dropping some of the gems that Sarah was sharing, and then I do have some questions here. I wanted to make sure that I'm encouraging folks too to drop their questions, not in the chat, but in the Q&A function here in the session. And then also want to encourage folks to If you see a question that you like that you want to get asked, be sure to upvote those. So those are my little, directives there. So first question with the most votes. Let's see. As a student who hasn't had an internship yet, what steps should they take now to prepare themselves to succeed when they wait a minute, when they do get one? Sorry. This whole technology magic kind of threw me off a little bit. So hopefully that didn't throw you off. So the question is there on the screen there. Any steps that folks should be taking to prepare themselves?
Michelle, you can also share. I know you work a lot with interns, but from a technical standpoint, I really think just brush up on what the company that you're joining. Let's say they use their stack as like C++, SQL, or let's say C sharp. Going to that first day, at least brushing up on like the basics shows that you were coming in prepared. Be ready for whatever they hit you with. Like try to be flexible. So even if you had some expectation and that didn't work out for any reason, if you show flexibility as an intern, that shows like a lot of strength and potential in just going with the flow, and know that making mistakes is so normal. So don't be afraid. Don't be so afraid to make a mistake that you end up like stopping yourself from even trying. It's take that step. Like I said, be proactive, ask that question, leave that comment, and trust me, as an intern, you will not blow up the company. Like whatever you do is not going to have such a massive effect for you to like be stressed about it and stay up at night. Just like actually do your best, brush up on your skills, and when you show up and you have that like energy and excitement to work, like when first day at the job, trust me, people will notice that, and you will stand out like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think all that you shared, Sarah, not having that fear, but knowing that, you can do it. And also thinking about like preparing yourself to succeed. I think you mentioned this too, Sarah, is feedback and just like practicing giving and receiving feedback, or speaking your needs. I think that it might sound basic, but it's so key. And then also just knowing like what can you work on, kind of reframing feedback, knowing that we're all in intentions to grow, and so whether it's something I'm doing well and keep doing or something to be improved, I think that you can take those like transferable skills, or really transferable from your projects and your groups, to the internship. And so even if you haven't had an internship yet, you're already doing the work now. Just kind of looking at that, and sharing that back. But yeah, Emmanuel, I'll
Amazing.
flip it back to you.
Yeah. No, great answers. And I think you definitely liberated some students, especially with Sarah saying, like, you will not blow up anything, you won't mess up. This is internships are places where you should be experimenting. You should be, doing your best and not being paralyzed by the potential of making a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes.
Exactly.
So, yeah, thanks for that. All righty. Next question. Kind of along those lines, like what types of questions should interns ask to make a positive impression, and which ones should they avoid? Uh, I'm
Yeah,
sure
this is a
Michelle
great
here's one.
question.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a great question. So when you say what type of questions interns should ask, when I would say I am not able to do this thing. This is what I tried. This is the result of what happened when I tried this. What is my path forward? So let's say you are trying to run something and the build keeps failing. You would put
Mm,
in what you tried, what your understanding is, and what questions do you need answered. So instead of saying like, "Hey Sarah, I can't do this."
mm,
Period. That's it. That's a negative question. That's not something that I
mhm,
would see and be like, well, why do you want me? How do you want me to help? But if I say, hey Sarah, my build is failing with this error. This is what I've tried. Like my understanding of this component is this. What am I doing wrong? Or what piece of information am I missing? Or do you know how this code works? And like linking to a piece of like GitHub source or something. So you can give the person you're asking the question to the starting point where they can help you faster, as opposed to if you tell me, hey Sarah, I can't do this, you know what I would do? I would ask you, well, what have you tried? So make shortcut that conversation and just immediately prepare everything that you've tried. Those are the types of the questions that will leave a positive impression.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It just speaks to like the growth mindset, right, Sarah? I mean, I feel like how you said, like showing up, and even like taking that positive energy, even if things are failing or a challenge, like you had mentioned on like how to list that out, how to, tackle and share what you've already done. And it kind of is also like seeing around corners. I know one of my managers has shared that with me before, is kind of like trying to see and anticipate. And if you don't know, at least you've kind of like laid it out there, and like seeking to understand, like you said. I mean, I think that like whole, kind of how you're approaching it, right, is that seeking to understand, so that already
Yeah.
opens like the gateway for that like communication.
Amazing. All righty. So, in terms of the interview process, what makes a candidate stand out when they're doing engaging in networking and interviews?
Michelle, I think you
Yeah.
should take that one.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There's a lot to be said around networking and interviews. I think the biggest piece is, and Sarah, you called on this too, is like having that inner confidence of yourself and knowing your skill set, right? And even if during the interview you need a pause moment or you need something, like it's okay to take time, and time is okay. And even kind of like talking out loud as you work through it, because chances are, you know what it is. It's just a matter of, working through that. And I think, when networking, again, showcasing your authentic self, and, being able to also articulate, as Sarah, I'm going to pull on how you shared, right? That forward, like, look, like, what is it that I want? And even if I don't know what I want, like, just being an open mind and kind of asking those questions. I think the networking is all about that connectivity, and how you can, understand where someone's coming from and where you're coming from, and what can you share together to kind of, learn from one another. I think that's the biggest piece, because you never know. I mean, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, where your network will be, and how to pull on them and cultivating it, right? Like giving back to your network. I think that's another piece that, Sarah really shared out, is that giving back piece. And I think that's a big part of networking. It might seem like one night, but it really becomes a community. It becomes a big community online. It becomes a community when you're trying to build, maybe cross collaborative or different company industry. We're all trying to move the needle towards that, better space. And so I'll pause there. I know that's a lot, but Sarah, anything to add?
Yeah, so from the technical interview aspect of the question, I would say when I am doing an intern or a new grad interview, I care more about your process than your result. If I give you a question and you immediately give me a solution, that tells me nothing about how you problem solve, how you communicate, how you think through a problem. So even if you've seen the question before, even if you know, and if you have seen the question before, it gives you brownie points to say that. But if you know how to do the question immediately and you just give me the solution, that is not a positive interview. So walking through what I did when I was interviewing, when I got a question that I don't even know where to start with, I would always start with walking through an example. So if I'm as a person, not as an algorithm, I'm trying to solve this problem, what would I do? And explaining that to the interviewer, like what I want is for the walking through the example. This is how I expect the behavior to work out to be when you're writing code or when you're writing pseudocode. Um, Sharing that thought, what you're thinking about, to show how you tackle a problem when you hit one. That is the point of an interview. It's not just about correctness.
Amazing. Love that. Show if you're a human being, right? Show how human you are versus the algorithm. Very simple ways of doing things, but we need reminders every now and then, especially in these networking and very highly stressful kind of situations. Um, so we have this question, and I really want to encourage folks to stop by the Snowflake booth. Like Michelle shared before, it's going to happen right after this session. And I'm encouraging you all to ask these questions and related questions. But the question is, does Snowflake sponsor international students?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think that's a big piece of being a global company that we are, and so yes, I mean, of course, folks are going to need to be on visas or being able to to appropriately depending on your school. But just to clarify, depending on how the question's being asked, we do have offices in Canada, in the United States, and we also have over, throughout Asia and Europe. And so if you are studying, let's say in that country, you'd need to, apply to the internship in that country, so we'll work through that. So I want to make sure that, we are global. But when we're looking at, sponsorships and different pieces there, again, it's really working through your university and what that looks like there. But I do encourage you to come to the booth and we can give more detailed information on that.
And yeah,
Amazing.
I started in Snowflake, Canada, since I graduated from the University of Waterloo. So yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Yes.
And now you're in Washington State, right? I don't know if we shared that, but I know we
Oh
chatted.
yeah, I don't know if we shared your journey. If you want to share a little more, Sarah.
Oh, for sure. I started out in because of the University of Waterloo, so I was located in in Toronto. So I worked in Snowflake, Canada. This was over the pandemic, so things were, I'm sure, a lot different. But I had a fully virtual two back-to-back internships that were both fully virtual. And then once I graduated, I worked out of Snowflake, Canada for a year and a few months. And then because my team wanted to kind of have everyone in the same location, because we got hired during the pandemic when everyone was all around, we got our team to be based out of either Menlo Park or Bellevue. So I chose Bellevue,
Yeah,
which is
wonderful.
Washington State. Yeah, I don't know how many people know Bellevue.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely it's amazing if you ever make it out there. But yeah, we do support visa sponsorships and we can share more in the booth, but just clarifying because it sometimes depends on the role as well. So, there might be a role, just as you shared, Sarah, that might be like, oh, we want this office, and that can evolve. So yes, so we can definitely share more about
Yeah, it is. Some teams are able to work across multiple locations because it's such a
yes.
big team.
Yes,
But if it's a
exactly.
small team, usually the engineering mindset is to have all the engineers in one or at most two locations. It's just like an FYI.
Love that. Thank you for sharing. I think one question that's not, well, it's kind of related to this. I'm going to infuse my own question, which might be helpful for
Yeah.
some students. But this question is, how did you make a lasting impression when you first started working full time? But I'm going to add an additional piece to this because in your story you shared that you did two internships, right? With Snowflake, and then you got the
Correct.
full-time offer. So, what did you do to get that second offer, right? Especially with standing out. How did you stand out in a virtual internship to get that return offer? And then, then how did you make that lasting impression for that, when you're first starting that full-time
I
role?
don't know if I would change like give any more information than what I said when it comes to being like proactive and asking questions and standing out like that. Um, because basically was told that I can get a return offer or do another internship. And I chose to do another internship because I still had one more required to graduate. But yeah, like it's I go back to the same things of how do you stand out is you're asking questions, you even if you're stuck. Like I will share that in my first internship, I got only about 50% of my project done because we hit hurdles that we didn't expect to hit. So when my mentor designed the project, he didn't expect a specific like part of our design that will be a blocker. So I spent like a month and a half researching different approaches to solve that problem. So I wasn't always just like pushing code the whole time. So like standing out is being flexibility of I was able to adapt to the fact that there was a changing requirement in my project. I was still communicating a lot with the team, asking questions, and then making suggestions. Like I said, as an intern, and these are all like positive, leave that positive impact. What I see as an unsuccessful internship specifically, and I have seen that happen at different companies, is being blocked and waiting until someone asks you how you're doing to tell
Mhm.
them that you need help. ask for help if you need it. It is more more harmful for you to not ask for help than it is to ask for help and then, like ask the wrong question, for example. Like I was saying, you could ask the wrong question, but it's better to ask question, even if it's wrong one, than to not do anything. So don't do nothing. Always try to do something. Be proactive, ask questions, leave feedback. And that involvement, it also shows your enthusiasm that you're excited about this thing that you're working on. You have all these ideas. Like even if you have ideas that you don't think it might work or might hit production, like share them. There's no disadvantage, or there's no like bad effects that will happen if you share an idea that doesn't make it to production. It's still good to have to share that you've thought about it, that you understand the component enough to have that to even have that idea. If that makes like, I hope that made sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. And then also sharing that piece about what makes a bad internship experience too, right? And knowing to ask the questions, not to just be held up to your own, and having that loop in your mind of trying to solve a problem or thinking that you need to have all the answers. You're an intern, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
100%. And I also, the word community, when I think about lasting impression, like Sarah, you spoke a lot about this, but, you know, building that community and having that, camaraderie, and also maybe helping others, if questions come up, and kind of raising your hand to kind of dive in. Of course, you have your scope and it's a lot, but at the same time, that community piece, because it knows that you're like a team player, that you're, a part of that as well. So that's something that I just think about when you lasting impression.
love
Yeah,
that.
and I will add, try to connect with other interns. Like having a big network is a great idea, because what I would say is we did our internship, like I said, virtually, but we had what I called the Friday coffee chats. So I sent
Yeah.
out an invite to every intern in my cohort, and I was like, let's join on Friday for an hour every other week, and let's talk. There was no agenda. There was no HR involved. I'm sorry, Michelle. But
No
it was
worries.
basically like
Love it.
what we would have had if we were all in the same building and we had the chance, for example, to grab lunch together or go out
Yeah.
for a walk for coffee. So we didn't have that because obviously we were
Mhm.
remote. So it was kind of an alternative to that, where we're like, hey guys, let's chat, no agenda. And then that helps me make connections with other interns. And then when I had one other intern, she wanted to switch teams. She came to me and she was like, hey, how was your experience?
Mm.
What are you working on? I'm thinking about, finding a new exciting project to work on, and so on. So even if you have, don't just think about building your network outside of like the Snowflake and with different people, for example, on LinkedIn, but think about building that network from inside Snowflake, and, connecting with all the other interns and all the other projects that they work on.
It
Love
sounds
that.
like you approached it as an engineering problem, right? Like, what are you trying to solve? And you took the initiative to create this, gathering that didn't exist, and made sure that it was like a safe place to support your fellow interns, and not having HR, which, I'm sure HR is fine with that as long as it helped with retention and and support of like the other interns. So kudos to you. Um, Another question here. Could you share what your software engineering new grad recruitment process typically looks like, both in terms of interview rounds and what you look for in strong candidates?
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'll go a high level. And then Sarah, if you want to like share maybe your direct experience, I think that might be really interesting to hear from. Also, if it varied between the two. Because we do have different teams at Snowflake, but you do have, usually 2 to 3 rounds. And, again, you're going to have a hacker rank, so a test prior. And that, is implemented, globally as well. So it's something that we do go through. And, your recruiter, so you should have a recruiter that, walks you through it, and also kind of helps connect you with like the next steps in the process. I do think though, from a strong candidate perspective, so you do usually have to, pass through. That kind of gives us that first realm, and then depending on the role, right? So, Sarah, do you want to share more specifically what it looked like for you, and then if it differed between the two different internships?
I don't know how much I could share because I didn't join as a new grad. I joined as an intern conversion. So if you
Oh,
join
that's
as
right.
an
Okay.
intern, you usually get a return offer. You don't interview again. So that's my experience. But yeah, so I also joined 3 years ago, like 2022 is when I did my intern conversion, and I started in 2023. So I don't know how much my experience would be up to date.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Is there any tips though when you were going through it structure? Did you still have to take the hacker rank test and kind of go through, your initial
Yeah.
phone screen? Okay.
So I did interview through Waterloo, which they have their own interview program, excuse me. But yeah, there was a online assessment, and then if I remember correctly, it was 2 rounds of technical interviews and then a
Yes.
team matching interview. So I had an interview with a manager who we could possibly work together, and he was sharing the project and asked me if this is something I'm interested in.
And how did also, I think that's a great piece when you talked about the team matching. That's something that, yes, I think can actually be sometimes one of the critical parts, right, to kind of get to that space. How was that conversation, and how did you feel like you could be open and honest about, what I think that's a frequent question we get.
Yeah.
'Cause you want to get the right fit, but you're also, excited to get that far. So
So yeah, to be honest, my main interest wasn't really in the team that I ended up joining because
okay,
I was previously working at a Ford, so I was working at really low level interactions with like hardware. So basically, the layer right over hardware is where I was at. I was writing a lot of C code, but I was like, let me give it a chance and like let me see what the team is working on. And the manager at the time just ended up selling it to me because I was mainly, like I said, I'm a big C++ enthusiast. So I just was like, can I use C++ here? And he was like, for sure. And he was also sharing how he's a C++ enthusiast. And he presented this really new problem that I've never dealt with before, which is like, how do we use C++ to execute other languages? So you can think of like the Java JNI or the Python C API. So these were all things that I wasn't exposed to before. And I was like, hey, let me give this a chance. It sounds interesting. And I did, and the rest is history. I loved the challenge, and I'm still here.
yeah. Thank you for
Love
sharing.
that. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you, Michelle, too, for, you know, volleying the questions too and going deeper into that. All right, next question. How long did it take you to earn your manager's trust? Sarah, this is specifically for you. And what did you do to gain ownership and make sure to follow best practices consistently?
So, as an intern or as a full time, I switched managers, or the managers changed. So I'll answer as an IC since that was just more recent in history.
Yeah, I think, Sarah, this might even be related to like the promotion,
Okay.
probably
Oh
piece,
yeah.
I think.
And honestly, delivering. So the way you gain someone's trust is just being consistent. So if I say like, "Hey, manager, this thing I'm working on, I can deliver it in 2 weeks," and then in 2 weeks' times you've delivered it, and then you're consistent like that. Or if you can't deliver it, you can say like, "Hey, manager, this I can't deliver it because of X, Y, Z. I need support in this," and having that communication. That's how we gain someone's trust. So when I was lucky enough that I worked on a table function feature when I first joined as IC. So I worked on building Python table functions as an intern, and then I went back to school, and it went to production. And then when I joined back, I built features on top of Python table functions. So I was already very familiar with the area, and I was able to deliver things consistently and fast. So that gained that trust because I was turning into an expert in that area because I've had so much experience with it, and I was able to help with people who have questions about it, and then also deliver another feature on top of it as an IC after like only a couple of months. So that is I would say how you gain ownership, how you gain someone's trust. And the way you gain ownership is you work on a feature, you continue working on it, you start asking questions about getting asked questions about it, and then you end up working on features on top of it, and that becomes you own this, you built it, so you own it. Is mostly how it works. Um, how do you make sure to follow best practices consistently? Try not to get the same feedback twice. So if you're writing code,
Mm.
you put out a PR and someone says like, this is not how we do this in Snowflake, this is the correct way to do it. Try to make sure you don't get that comment again. like you remember this. Now that you know that this is how you do this, try to follow it. And I mean, at Snowflake, we have that documented. So we have our best practices documented. So try to go over them every, like, however you need to just refresh your memory. Or for example, like even now, I've worked with the Snowflake code base for almost 3 years, but sometimes I'm still like, oh, how do we start a thread in Snowflake? What's the best practice? Let me go look up the doc real quick and remember, or look at examples in the code base of other code paths that do something similar to what I want to do and have that as my starting point. So that's how I would say, like, the goal is to not have the same comment twice. How to get there is check documentation, check patterns in the code path, and see like how do other people do the things that I'm trying to do.
Amazing. Great tips. Okay, so we have about like 11 or so minutes. I don't know if I'm not doing my minutes right. 14 minutes, I think. And so I have some, I think, quick questions. Does Snowflake have any freshman or sophomore internship programs?
That's a great question. So currently, we used to have a high school program, but from our freshman sophomore, it is more challenging to get in those realms. So we typically we don't have a structured specifically for that group, but it is something that we're looking into. I think it's something that is a huge component of what having that pathway right from when you start. So if there is any feedback or thoughts around that, it's something that we're continuing to explore. But again, similar to Sarah's journey, it's really targeted towards those classes up there. So love
Yeah,
that.
I was
Love
in
that
third
question.
year when I joined.
Yeah.
What did you say, Sarah? You were a freshman?
I was in my third year. So I
Oh,
was
third year. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Next question is for Sarah. It reads, Sarah, what resources did you use to get better with your technical writing?
Great question.
Good question. I think
Yeah,
just
very good.
doing it. It's one of those things that like you do it a few times and you realize like one thing I do is go back and read my old docs. So sometimes I would like go and see like give myself like feedback on what went wrong in that doc and like how can I make it better. But doing it, I will be honest, I don't like writing. It's not something that I particularly enjoy, but forcing myself to sit down and like try to just get it done and then go over it multiple times, and also putting myself in the position of someone who like someone else as the reader helped as well, and then reading what other people write. So that's not specifically a resource, but I try to expose myself to a lot of other design docs, even if I'm not
Mm.
particularly like involved in the project. But I will just read it and see how people structure their ideas, how they create their diagrams, and I'll go over like okay, like a project that was a little bit similar to mine, like how did they introduce this idea, how did they give alternatives, like do they present all of the alternatives for all of the options and then pick one, or do they put the option that they want first and then put the other alternative. So those kind of like just exposed to other designs and people who are better writers than me, and try to like borrow from them and see how I can get better, uh, given how they write.
Great practical tips there. Thank you
Yeah, and
for
I love
sharing.
the each one teach one kind of methodology of just like checking out other folks, because I mean you can really learn, and that like innovation, is key from, how your colleagues are looking through things. So yeah, love that advice.
Learning doesn't, happen in a bubble. So you definitely
Mhm,
need, I think that's like a theme we've been talking about, community, right? And
mhm.
not doing things alone. Um, the other question I have is, as an intern, failure can be a vehicle for growth. How have you handled failures in your role? Furthermore, how do you navigate conversations with your manager to create a plan to overcome the failure and grow as an engineer?
I don't know how you would define failure as an intern, to be honest. Like, is it you're blocked, you're unable to do something? I wouldn't even classify that as a failure. You're stuck. Um, yeah, I'm like trying to, maybe Michelle or Manuela, if you have thoughts about that, and then I can answer the question based on it.
Uh,
Yeah.
Or
what if we took this approach in terms of imposter syndrome, perhaps?
I see.
'Cause right? Maybe that might be helpful. Not
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, failing as an intern, I'm trying to figure out what that would mean. But if you're working on
Mhm.
a project and, for example, you're stuck because you're not able to deliver it, whether you don't have you think you don't have the technical background, or you don't understand how things work. Like I said, asking questions and talking to your manager to figure out how to find a path forward, or for them to explain the code path better. Like a lot about uh, a big component in internship is mentorship, like Michelle said. We usually pair you with a mentor, not even like you wouldn't have that communication with necessarily your manager, but you have a mentor that their job is to set you up for success. So their job
Mhm.
is to make sure that you can be unblocked, you have all the resources that you need. And then if you genuinely cannot move forward for some reason, then just try to figure out why, and then if there are things that could help you and you need access to that, like, ask for it. Like, if you need help with something, if you need time with a specific, like, person for more explanation, ask for it. I would try to say that, and then if you're thinking failure as in you don't deliver your project, I wouldn't classify that as failure. Because like I said, in my first internship, we didn't end up delivering on 100% of the project. We delivered on 50% of the project because the second phase, we hit something that we didn't expect. But that's not failure. That's just engineering. You hit something you didn't expect, and you try to find workarounds, and you spend a few months prototyping, and that's what I ended up doing. So I I I would try not to think of it as failure, but try to classify it differently in your head, and, like, you either ask questions or ask for help, and that's how you move forward.
Yeah, I love that, Sarah, and it also makes me think about the process piece, right? You mean, you've talked a lot about process and really what that looks like, and so tying in the process and the communication of asking questions, I mean, because we're all gonna make mistakes or have those hard moments or, hit those walls in how to move forward. It's really the how, right? The
Yeah.
how you're understanding and asking and collaborating, and that's where, like, I think the community, again, I know it's been a common theme here, but that really is kinda helps you get over that hump,
Yeah.
and turning that failure into the opportunity, right?
Yeah, and I think I saw a comment that says failure is not like of not meeting a deadline. You should know before you reach the deadline whether you'll reach it or not. So, like, if you have a month away, if you're supposed to deliver a feature in a month, and within 2 weeks, you know that you might not be able to deliver it, then communication at that point is where you would need to talk to your mentor or your manager. You don't wait until the day of and you're like, "Oops, can't do it." But, with a good mentor and a good, manager, they will already be checking in with you, like, once a week or at least once a week. I used to have daily conversations with my mentor. That might be a bit excessive, but it was virtual, and it's hard not to talk to anyone all day. But um, if you're not, yeah, if you think you cannot deliver that project at that time, that more recurrent check-ins will help you know that it's not a surprise when that deadline comes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great piece, and I think just to even kinda tag team off of that, like, when you think about your one-on-ones with your managers, so I know that we talked a lot about being with your manager and that communication, but, you do have the one-on-one structured, and that's something that we do here at Snowflake is, help set you up with what does a successful one-on-one look like, and what is your project plan, what are the milestones, so having that up front as you kinda track towards, like you said, Sarah, you'd be able to kinda anticipate that. But I
Yeah.
do think that's where, like, the live feedback loops. So we also offer an awkward to awesome feedback, workshop that's newer. So I don't know, Sarah, if you took it, but we launched it this year, with, for a Snowflake intern program. And I think that's another key piece is just, like, being able to express exactly, because sometimes you're like, "Okay, how do I express the timelines and moving around and feel okay and save space?" Like, it's okay. Like you even said, Sarah, you didn't even get through half of it, right, that
Yeah.
first time? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's okay to be like scared. It's okay to be nervous, like you're talking to your manager and all of that, but just you'll get like do it. The only way to get over is to do it. And at the end of the day, your manager is a person. They're not going to they understand they were once in your position. Like I'm an engineer at IC2 now. I was once an intern. So
Mhm.
if you're joined as an intern and you're a little bit nervous to talk to me, like I will understand because I was once in your position. So there's a lot of like again, like Michelle said, the community aspect of it. There's understanding. It's okay to be nervous about to talk to your mentor, your manager. Take notes before you go into the meeting so you don't go in and you're like, I don't know what I needed to talk to, but have the main points written. And then, even if you're talking to them while you're nervous, just do it nervous. Like it's better to do it nervous than not to do it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect. You have to do it scared. That's the only way that you'll get better at it. And I love the awkward, awesome feedback. I'm going to borrow that. Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. And then this is going to be our last question, our closeout question. Any top advice, as well as like closing advice that you want to give our emerging engineers here?
Michelle, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think, just, really driving with that inner, confidence that you can do anything you put your mind to, and knowing that there's a whole community out there of folks wanting you to, feel your best, do your best, learn. And so just, again, being that openness that you shared, Sarah, and like really seeking to understand what it is you're driving towards in your needs. I think that's just so key. So yeah, with that, Sarah, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, closing remarks. Like, I'll go back to try to be proactive, like I said, and also be collaborative. I feel like a lot of competitive aspects in engineering, but you will get so much further working with people versus working against them. So collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Ask questions, and then once you have knowledge, once you've become a person who is a subject matter expert, share. So be that
Oh
person
yeah,
for
I love
someone
that.
else. Be generous with your time, and what you give out there is what you're going to get back. So if you are generous with your time, other people are going to be generous with their time with you. So be proactive, be collaborative, and don't take stuff too seriously. This is, still have your try to work on that work life balance. Still um have a life outside of your job. I will say that's another thing about Snowflake is um the work ends at, the office. Having being able to have fun outside of work is, and even at the office, is something that you should think about. And that, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. And with that, with being generous of your time, I just wanted to thank both you, Sarah, and Michelle, for being generous with your time, your advice, sharing your experience. I want to make sure that folks are sharing their appreciation for you in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
Um, please be sure to do that. And please be sure to stop by their booth in a little bit and ask any questions that we didn't get a chance to, go through. Stop by their booth to learn about the opportunities they have and to learn more about the organization and to network. And the other thing I wanted to share too is don't forget to fill out the survey that should be coming up. Well, it popped up for me, so I know it popped up for you all. So be sure to fill that out so that we can collect your feedback. And to close us out, we will be having a brief video from our host, Bobby D. Thanks for joining.
All right, I'm back. And guess what? Now we're transitioning into the open networking session. Now you can visit the networking lounge to build connections or check out company booths to learn more about organizations joining us here at the summit. Now, don't forget, EES is all about those moments of connections that can change your future.